It's Monday night, and you know what that means. Jersey First TV proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk, and I am New Jersey's premier and now seven-time award-winning journalist, top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit online magazine, and certainly your favorite political commentator each and every week right here online. Yes, it's me, folks, Fernando Uribe. Hoping you're having a wonderful start of the month. Happy December. Again, hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Hopefully you had a great weekend. I sure did. My Dallas Cowboys keep rolling again, up to 9-3. Let me have a little victory tea here today. I feel a little giddy now. I'm waiting for that Christmas Eve showdown with the Eagles. And, they want to take the East away from us. They're gonna have to really grab it. So we'll find out in a few weeks. But a lot of NFL to be played. Shout out to everybody. Obviously, who tunes in every single week here, folks. Of course, I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so right here on Jersey First TV, on Facebook Live via StreamYard, also on the Jersey First Twitter page, as well as YouTube, and also on LinkedIn. Of course, sharing is caring, ladies and gentlemen. Take a moment, click that share button from wherever you're tuning in this evening. And of course, I appreciate all the great organic traffic that Real Talk with Fernando Uribe continues to get every single week here. Folks, no paid ads, nothing's boosted. Everything is organic and generic and genuine here. And of course, it's all courtesy of Jersey First TV. Always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to check out Real Talk and Jersey First TV on all of our social media sites. Make sure you like us on Facebook. And of course, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at The Fernando Zone. And also check out Jersey First on their YouTube page. And wherever you get your podcast, whether it's Spotify or SoundCloud, download it and listen to it whenever let's say you're walking your dog. I don't know, from some of my students, maybe doing those late term papers, studying for finals, whatever it is you're doing, folks, take Jersey First TV with you wherever you go. And of course, tune in and share it on all of your social media platforms. Once again, folks, it's a great beginning to the month of December. I just have to say again, as the year is about to close out, I can't say enough how grateful and thankful I am to all of you watching at home every single week. Since joining Jersey First TV at the beginning of this year, it was the best decision I ever made. And a shout out to Rosemary Becky, the CEO of Jersey First, for her belief in my abilities and certainly believing in my vision of what Real Talk with Fernando Uribe can be. And it's been exceptionally well all year long. But also, folks, not just because of yours truly, but more importantly, because of the quality of guests that I bring you every single week. It is exclusive after exclusive, and this week is no exception. Folks, joining me now, top media host here in the state of New Jersey. He's a very dedicated conservative and a guy, I would argue that when we talk about the Mount Rushmore of conservatives right now in the state of New Jersey, he's one of them. Folks, my guest this week, the great Bill Spadea, joins us on Real Talk. Bill, how are you?
Fernando, great to be with you. Thanks for that awesome introduction. Always good to join you.
Well, listen, Bill, I appreciate you coming on the show. I know you're in high demand. You are arguably one of the biggest media personalities in New Jersey, also a staunch conservative like myself. And it seems like we're in the minority here, right, in the Garden State?
You would think that, Fernando, but a couple of things jump off the page with everything that we saw in the last two cycles. Number one, you have back to 2021 a very low relatively speaking, turnout in New Jersey. When 6 in 10 voters don't show up, you've got to say that part of the problem is they didn't like the choices that they had, and most people, unfortunately, opt to stay home. So what that tells me is there are a lot more people out there that actually do agree with us putting the family first, putting small businesses first, the idea of putting the community first, and all of that. Those ideas resonate, I believe, with the majority of people. The challenge is the candidates that embrace those ideas, few and far between.
Well, you mentioned about turnout, and I've talked about this all year long. And going back to last November, really, 39% of Republicans came out to vote. And I would argue that that's the biggest difference between Governor Murphy having a second term and not Governor Jack Ciattarelli. So I just think there's a lot of unnecessary tribalism, Bill, within Republican circles, within conservative circles. And I think that that's really what cost the governor's race last year. Is that fair to say?
Well, I think there certainly there's an amount of that, but this has been going on in the Republican Party for the past 3 decades. This year was no different. The difference was that when Chris Christie ran for governor, he created and presented a stark contrast between what he said he would do as governor. Not that he did everything he said he would do, but that's for another show. But he presented a case that showed the stark contrast between what a Chris Christie administration would look like compared to what we had seen for 4 years of John Corzine. Jack Ciattarelli failed miserably in that category. He was unable to articulate even basic things like getting the masks off the kids, restoring parental choice when it came to this whole nonsense of gender studies, etc. Wouldn't even step up for the firefighters who were being fired for not taking the vaccine for COVID without any exemptions allowed. So I think what we saw in 2021 was directly opposite in New Jersey than you saw in Virginia. In Virginia, Glenn Youngkin stepped up. He said, I'm going to be the champion of parents. I'm going to be the champion of small business. I'm going to restore freedom and choice to Virginians. And he won a convincing victory. We should have had that win in New Jersey. But the truth is, Fernando, we have seen the decline of the Republican voice over the course of the past 30 years, really going back to Governor Christine Todd Whitman when she first started moving the money around. And we have yet to recover fully from that. The good news is this, that at the local level, we saw tremendous gains, not just in 2021, but in 2022, where the media has tried to portray this vision that it was not only not a red wave, it wasn't even a red trickle. Not true in New Jersey. We saw 447 school board members, new moms and dads running for school board, win big. And if you look across the country, if you take the top of the ticket down, there were 5 million more Republican votes, or at least votes cast for Republican candidates and Democratic candidates. So the challenge we have always is perception. What I see in New Jersey is if we can have the leaders articulate the grassroots important messaging when it comes to communities, when it comes to families, when it comes to education, when it comes to law and order and medical choice and all that, the candidates that can represent those ideas are going to win.
I'm with you. And folks, if you just joined us right now, it's 6:06 here on the East Coast. My guest this week here on Real Talk is notable media personality here in the state of New Jersey, the great Bill Spadea, joining us here on Jersey First TV. Bill, you hit a lot of great points there, and one specifically about school boards, which I have been a big advocate for. And I think that's something that went really underreported. What else is new in the liberal media in New Jersey? And unfortunately, we are so infested with, again, and I know you'll take the high road here. I don't have to. There's so much garbage journalism, Bill, here in the Garden State when it comes to just the way that the media reports on things, and more specifically, like that notion itself about school board races. You didn't see NJ Spotlight News really talk about it. You didn't see Insider NJ. You didn't see Star Ledger, the Birkin record. I'm sorry. It's really a disservice to New Jerseyans that unfortunately pay money into these sites and they're not getting their ROI back when it comes to information. Those school board races are so important, especially with what we're learning about this curriculum that I know you have talked about it. I've talked about it. I know Matt Rooney has also talked about it. But it's only a handful of us that are really leading the charge on this.
Well, the first thing, Fernando, is with the school curriculum, you've got to read it. And many of these politicians and reporters have simply not done that. When you read it, you understand that this is predatory behavior. It's sexualizing kids. Call it grooming, call it recruiting, call it whatever term you want. It's not appropriate in grade school. And I think by and large, most parents, straight parents, gay parents, left-wing parents, right-wing parents, if you're a parent and you care about your kid, you don't want them sexualized by strangers in a school setting. It's that simple. You don't want them sexualized by anybody. These are kids that are waiting for Santa Claus to come down the chimney and deliver gifts on Christmas morning. And now we're talking about sex acts in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Absolutely inappropriate. And again, back to my point earlier in the show, that in Virginia, Glenn Youngkin was able to capture that and say, look, guys, we've gone too far. We need to restore and protect the rights of parents. We need that in New Jersey. And we saw that with the Common Sense Club when we sent out the opportunity for parents to write their legislators. In just a few short weeks, 68,000 letters from parents to legislators saying, no way, no how, stop it. And we're a brand new organization. So that's the good news. But beyond, to your point, I brought this up the other day. There are very few reporters in New Jersey that are worth their salt, that really deserve the title of journalist. And we saw this at a press conference the other day with Phil Murphy, where he announced he was going to launch a comprehensive independent
Yeah.
study on his
Okay.
COVID response. Only one reporter in the entire state press corps, Jim Murdoch with News 12, asked the question of Governor Murphy as to his response to the report that was already out there, published by some esteemed economists and critical thinkers, one being Stephen Moore, who I've had on the show, where New Jersey ranked F minus, worst response when it came to mortality, education, and the economy. And the governor said, I haven't heard of that report. So, he has, his operatives are at least listening to my show, and they know about this report. They choose to ignore it, and the press lets them get away with it, other than a couple of good folks out there that are true journalists.
And it's really interesting you bring that up, because one of the things that really annoys me about this entire independent study about COVID is we're going to learn. I mean, for those of us that know already, like you and I and others that have basic common sense, that are not cognitively declining, we know that governors like Phil Murphy, like Andrew Cuomo at the time, Kathy Hochul, Ned Lamont, I hate to sort of politicize a virus, but blue governors got it wrong. Red governors like Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott in Texas collectively, those governors got it right. And it's interesting how this report conveniently is going to come out, maybe not even before next year's legislative races. It might come out afterwards. I mean, you want to talk about really interesting timing to not harm incumbents that are running for seats in the Assembly and the state Senate. I just think, again, the reason that the governor had to squeak by, and I was the only guy, I think you also were too, that Governor Murphy was going to struggle to get reelected, is because there were pockets of the state that he was immensely unpopular. Instead of taking a regional approach to COVID, he believes in this one size fits all. We know that doesn't work, Bill.
It not only that, but you're not politicizing the virus. You're politicizing, very rightly so, the response to the virus. And the political response in red states like South Dakota, Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, Florida, not only was the responsible and smart way to go, but it's been proved out in the results over the past couple of years, with lower death rates, with a vibrant economy, with education that is not set back. In New Jersey, our education has been set back, some are saying, several years with these poor kids. And again, as Governor Christie reportedly said at an internal meeting with the Republican Party, 84,000 votes is not a close election. We've had elections in New Jersey statewide decided by fewer than 2,000 votes. The reason that the Republicans blew it this time, and we're not going to let them blow it in 23 or in 25, because this is about the people and not about the insiders. This insider cabal of consultants that make money no matter who wins or loses, those days are over. It's time for a brand new face on the Republican Party, and that face is that of parents and small business owners, janitors and teachers and cops and firefighters and everybody in between. It's time for the Republican Party to capture what the Democratic Party thought they represented, claimed to represent, but clearly do not represent. And that is every face out there, regardless of where you voted in the past or what the color of your skin is or what job you have or how many zeros in your bank account. We need a populist movement of parents and regular middle class, working class people to take our state back. And when we do that, we do it based on common sense, critical thinking, parental rights, small business protection, and support for law enforcement, a strong border, standing up for our military, standing up for medical freedom, the rights of not just patients, but also doctors and nurses and teachers. When we put that together, I can tell you this, Fernando, we have only 5 seats to take the state Senate in 2023. Only 5, only 7 in the Assembly. So with the right candidates, with the strong message that has resonated across this great country, we bring that to New Jersey. You're going to see a new majority come 2023.
I'll tell you, that sounds like a great platform. More on that later, though, because as you talk about maybe a new face or a new name leading the Republican charge, we'll get that in a minute. But we'll sort of stay on that topic about the legislative races in 23, where, listen, I think for everyone at home who's a sportsman, I think you all appreciate this sort of comparison. I would argue that Bob Hugin, the chair of the New Jersey Republican Party, is on the hot seat like any coach would be. listen, I get it. Republicans flipped a congressional race just a few weeks ago, but understand, folks, that this redistricting map was meant to do exactly that, was to sacrifice one Democratic seat, and that's what happened. Tom Malinowski lost. Tom Kean won. In terms of the other races, I thought they'd be closer. I thought Bobby Lee had a hell of a chance in South Jersey. That wasn't the case. I certainly thought that maybe Billy Primp, who came within almost like 10 points, which again, for someone like Bill Pascrell, who's been winning by double digits in high margin tested race with hardly any money going to Billy, I would argue that with the redistricting map, again, favoring Republicans a little bit next year, though, Bill, it seems like Bob Hugin has got to get to work now. Don't just rest on your laurels about, hey, we sent Tom Kean to Washington. It's about shaving off that. And I'm looking at numbers here, for example, in the Assembly, it's Democrats having the majority by 46-34, and in the Senate by 24-16. Again, ladies and gentlemen, these are reasonable margins that Republicans can shave off. But again, the chairman, Bob Hugin, you got to get to work now, knocking on doors. Well, all that good stuff, Bill.
Fernando, I'll just say this. I'll say this up front, and then I'll explain my reasons. Bob Hugin should resign, period. He is not capable nor qualified to be the leader of the Republican Party, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, Tom Kean Jr. won that race because Tom Kean Jr. is a household name in New Jersey. The Kean family goes back to his dad being the most popular governor we've had in 50 years. That's number one. Number two, as you rightly stated, the districts were drawn so that 7th district would make the incumbent Democrat weak, and they did just that. And number three, it was a razor-thin margin, not called for a few days. So it's not like Tom Kean Jr. came in and had this landslide victory. So I would argue he won in spite of the state party, because look around at the Frank Pallone race. Sue Kiley ran a heck of a race, no help from the NJGOP. Look at Frank Pallotta in the 5th district, no help from the NJGOP. Look at Paul DeGroot in the 11th district, no help. So again, where there was opportunity, what the state party failed to do is recruit volunteers, raise the money, and then whatever money they had, they didn't spend it where they could have built up. And I'll tell you, my evidence is that we won across the state those 447 local races for school board. They weren't all in the 7th district. They were all spread out across this great state in congressional districts that could have and should have been more competitive. But then it gets worse. Then Bob Hugin goes off the cuff, grabs the microphone in front of all the press to see, and it goes on and attacks Mikey Sherrill in a very personal way. She is the incumbent congresswoman in the 11th district. Here's a mom and a veteran, and you got the chairman of the Republican Party up there using vulgarity, curse words. It was an embarrassing moment on that alone. His lack of discipline. He should resign. And I've said this publicly on the radio as well. The Republican Party needs and deserves better, because we need to grow from the ground up. People like Rosemary Becky with Jersey First are doing an outstanding job of networking, raising money, bringing people in. You've got Josh Akins with Arise NJ leading the charge at the local level. You've got county chairs that are out there. Tim Howes in Somerset, Jack Zisa in Bergen, George Gilmore in Ocean, and a host of others, Rob Benjaminga in Middlesex and Tom Crone in Camden, all doing an outstanding job building them up. Peter Murphy in Passaic, Laura Ali in Morris, fighting the fight. A lot of infighting in a lot of these counties, but you have an opportunity to really build. So what's happening in the Republican Party is happening across the country. It's ground up. So it's starting to bubble up from those grassroots races, and it's going to lead all the way through the Senate races and the Assembly races. But honestly, Fernando, it's not personal. It's results oriented. If I owned a football team and you lost every race but one, I'd say, you know what? I think it's time to move on and get someone else.
No, Bill, well said. And by the way, shout out to Josh Aiken. I just interviewed him a few weeks ago on the show, and he did so much great work in helping countless amount of parents win school board races. And I think for anyone that doesn't know about Arise NJ, look them up. They're a wonderful organization. And I think, again, and this is, I think also too, Bill, there's two things I think going into next year, I think that they're just unavoidable. Number one is messaging. I think that the NJGOP needs to do a better job of messaging. And number two, and I'll quote Bridgewater Mayor Matthew Mensch, who was on the show last week. Whether we like it or not, though, Bill, it seems like vote by mail is here to stay. I
Yeah,
think Republicans need to do a
I would
better
agree.
job of messaging when it comes to vote by mail. It's not just about, oh, there's a ballot there, don't bother. It's not going to, no, you have to get
Yes.
people energized. And I think that for whatever reason, the NJGOP, the hierarchy, isn't putting enough emphasis. And mind you, they registered, I think, I'm not sure exactly the number. And I know the Democrats still have like 1.5 million voter roll advantage.
But you know, Fernando,
mobilize.
we shouldn't accept those numbers. So
I
I've been
agree.
saying this for years, right? So you roughly 2 million Democrats, 1 million Republicans, 2.2 million independents. And when I look at the demographics of my show, and we poll this often, we do the studies over the past 8 years, a third are Democrats, a third are independents, unaffiliated, and a third are Republicans. So this notion that somehow we have just a conservative base listening to my radio show, not true at all. Tons of disaffected Democrats and many, many, many unaffiliateds. My mission over the past 6 months has been to the unaffiliated to say, look, join me and vote in the Republican primary in June of 2023, because you shouldn't settle for the two choices at the end. Try to shape the two choices before we get to the end. The primaries are where the win is. And to your point, we should be sending volunteers into the long-term care facilities, helping people get their vote out. Why are so many people subjected to Democratic operatives who help them fill out ballots, and then all of a sudden they turn in 100 ballots, and surprisingly, they all vote Democrat? We have to get ahead of that. We need to do things like what Chad Connolly and the faith-based organization Faith Wins in Virginia did by throwing tens of thousands of fraudulent voters off the rolls. We need a concerted effort. There's wasted opportunity with the New Jersey Republican Party unless they start raising the money, hire lawyers, and hire and recruit volunteers with a massive statewide effort to get people registered, but more importantly than getting them registered, getting their votes actually counted. Look at the problem we had in Mercer County. Every machine went down in Mercer County on election day. We know that election day favors Republicans. We've got to reverse that. So to anyone listening who is a registered Republican, when that mail-in ballot comes, you fill it out and send it back in. I'm telling you, I have voted by mail for the past 10 years because of my schedule and what I do. I'm up at 3:30 in the morning. My day gets crazy. Election day is madness. So I have voted by mail since as long as I can remember, and I'm pretty confident my vote counts. I'm not 100% confident, but look, that's only because I've seen the shenanigans that go on. And I'll tell you this, my wife and I received 5 sample ballots in the last election. So we know there's fraud. We know it's broken. I'll tell you this, I'd like to see a governor on day one call for an audit of every county clerk, all 21 counties, and have them determine what is the chain of custody? What is the plan for counting these votes? How do you keep the ballots secure that show up early? That should all be exposed so that we have a consistent and standard way of doing this. And then, yes, Republicans need to get out of their own way and say, this is what it is. Maybe we win a court case down the road and we reset the clock back to in-person voting with voter ID. I'd love to see that. But until then, we have to outpace and outvote the fraud. Turnout is what matters.
I'm with you, Bill. And what you just laid out, I think, is a very systemic and a very pragmatic way to approach the way not just voting should take place from now on, but also to what the NJGOP needs to do better. And it's infuriating to me because, again, we're just not reaching enough independence also. Because, again, the messaging, listen, we all know we're the highest taxed state in the country. We lead the country with the highest average of property. I'm looking right here at $9,214. Okay,
that's the average
tax. That's crazy in New Jersey. It just leads the country. But I think it goes beyond tax. We know that in Trenton they spend irresponsibly. They tax irresponsibly. I would just start, now mind you, again, I hate to racialize things because I'm the last person. I'm always shooting down identity politics, but it seems like Hispanics like myself and others, I think this is a demographic where Republicans and conservatives can really, really maximize in 23, in 24, and in 25, because we know that far left Democrats in Trenton don't know what they're doing when it comes to taxes, when it comes to spending. You know, they've never met a tax hike that they don't like. And it just seems like the NJGOP needs to do a better job. We know taxes are a problem, but talk about school board. Talk about, again, spending. Talk about things that we know taxes are a problem, but reach out to demographics the topics that can win.
Well, to your point, Fernando, taxes are a problem because voters are feeling increasingly that they're not getting anything for their investment. The reality is that voters in New Jersey will pay taxes if they're getting the best education system, if they're getting roads that are paved, a motor vehicle services that actually delivers and can deliver basic services, an unemployment or a Department of Labor that can actually deliver unemployment checks. If you are getting a return on your investment, you feel a lot better about it. The problem in New Jersey is the spending continues to go up. The service delivery continues to go down. We have some of the worst roads when, I mean, you know, the turnpike is profitable. The turnpike's pretty good. But you know what? I hear truck drivers every single morning calling me upset about the conditions of some of the side roads, some of the off highways once they leave the turnpike, and then the random closures that there's no communication on. And all of a sudden, you got a truck driver that's coming up against his 10 hours. He's now got to pull over for 2 hours and take a break. And nobody pays attention to those working over the road and regional delivery drivers. Nobody cares. You've got truck drivers out there that can't get their CDL license renewed for months because they can't get an appointment with motor vehicles. So the practical side of government, it's not the politics of identity or race. Anyone, black, brown, white, or anything in between, benefits from government that can deliver services. So if you are we see these trends all the time. People will say, well, if you're a black voter or a Hispanic voter, you tend to vote Democrat. Well, part of the reason is that Republicans have failed to deliver the message, as you were saying, about the practical delivery of services. The opportunity is here. The iron has never been hotter. The Democratic Party has abandoned their base. They have forsaken regular middle class and working class voters. They have sided with the extremists, the radicals. They are pushing gender politics, gender fluid society among grade schoolers. They've gone mad. But Republicans, in order to pick that up, cannot play identity politics. They have to do what we've been saying for the past few years: common sense, practical reality. And what our former nominee said at Rowan University just a few short weeks ago was wrong. It was racist, and he ought to apologize. I'm referring to Jack Ciattarelli, who was asked a question at Rowan University: why did you lose? And he said, I quote, "My campaign was too white." That kind of racist remark has no place in our party, in my opinion, no place in civil discourse. And, he should take a step back and apologize for that terrible remark, because, Fernando, it's not about the color of your skin.
That's right.
It is about the content of your character, as Dr. Martin Luther King said. It is about your principles. It is about your passion. It's about your faith and your family and your desire for freedom and desire for the basic function of government to deliver on the promise of public service. That's what the Republican Party has to start talking about and represent going forward. And I can tell you, we can build a sustainable long-term majority that will create an atmosphere of liberty and prosperity in the Garden State, as our state motto says.
Bill, you talk about the Republican Party on a national level. We know that there was a bit of chatter on the national level in media and even statewide media that this was an indictment or sort of just exposing the reality to some of them in the liberal media that the 45th president is perhaps now a toxic brand for the Republican Party, that moving forward, people like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and others might be a better choice moving forward for the Republican Party. I hate this sort of infighting or tribalism within the party itself. Like, Democrats find a way to kind of get their act together and just push candidates. Again, not great candidates. We saw it in Pennsylvania. We saw it in tons of House seats and Senate seats collectively around the country.
Well,
the problem is, though, I think that there is some infighting that Republicans may have to get over. Do you foresee that being a problem in New Jersey nationally?
First of all, the Republicans have to stop making Trump the number one issue. He's not the number one issue. Donald J. Trump was a great president. We had an absolutely outstanding economy under his leadership. I have called him out as making many mistakes when it came to pushing the vaccine, when it came to not firing Dr. Fauci. I've written about this, where Donald Trump failed, in my opinion. However, you've got a group of never Trump Republicans out there that would sooner tear down their own party than support Donald Trump. And I can tell you, when you look at that, you're ignoring most of the country outside of the Northeast and the left coast. Look at 140 House candidates endorsed by Donald Trump won on Election Day. 17 Senate candidates endorsed by Donald Trump, and he campaigned for them, won on Election Day. So I think that the problem is, in a place like New Jersey, you get Republicans that sometimes think they live in this silo. The
Sure.
reality is this. Do you want gas down to $2 a gallon again, or are you too offended by the mean tweets? Now, I'm not saying that I am supporting Trump in this upcoming 2024 primary. I don't know. I'd like to see what Mike Pompeo has to say. I'd like to see what Mike Pence has to say. I'd certainly like to see what Ron DeSantis has to say. But again, can we just have a primary and let these different warriors out there duke it out on the debate stage and work through the primary and caucus process? The best person wins. And then, for goodness sakes, can we just get behind the one who wins and take this country back from the Bidens?
Well, I'm with you. Bill, keep it going, bringing it back to New Jersey. It just seems everywhere I go, events, whether it's last week for Jersey First, great cocktail party hosted by Jersey First, or other events, it just seems like, a lot of people tell me, there's there's an aura of Bill Spadea looking and acting very gubernatorial in his delivery, in his message, and his platform. Again, we're a little bit ways away from 2025, but is there something that you want to share with our audience?
Well, Fernando, I'll tell you, I certainly this topic comes up. I've had a lot of our donors, a lot of callers to the radio show. A lot of people are asking me to consider running for governor in 2025. Certainly something that is on my mind and I am thinking about, no doubt about that. That said, there are steps to get there. And, when I look at this, I said, look, I've got the largest audience in the state. It is evenly divided between Democrats, Independents, Republicans. We've got the fastest grassroots organization, fastest growing grassroots organization in Common Sense Club, now topping 91,000 members. So the message that I have been presenting is resonating amongst voters, business owners, parents, public workers, union trades, the whole 9 yards. So yes, I'm thinking about it. But first, we've got to rebuild this state from the ground up. So my immediate focus is the 2023 elections to get a Republican majority in the state Senate and, God willing, in the Assembly as well. The interesting thing is that Senate that we elect in 2023 is a 4-year term. So the new governor, regardless of who it is, will inherit that Republican majority in 2025. And I believe if you look at the examples, and I model what we are pushing for off of not just Ron DeSantis most recently, but also Scott Walker in Wisconsin, who turned a $3.6 billion deficit into a $900 million surplus. It is time to take that red line item veto, that red pen, and X out some of the money going to Rutgers, maybe all of the $1 billion subsidy that they're getting. It's time to take a look at New Jersey Transit and monetize those assets. It's time to have the NJEA come to the table, not for political talking points, not because somebody's looking to maneuver to get credit and move up. No. Come to the table. We've got to address education. I'll tell you one more thing. One of the first things that I think needs to be done is a full audit of Horizon and the state health plan. We believe there are billions and billions of dollars being wasted. Not we believe. Pretty much everybody can see that billions are being wasted. And again, the delivery is subpar. So these are the practical things that we have to think about. 2025 is a ways off. At the same time, what's going to happen in 2025? The battle for that has started now, and it's all about ideas. Regardless of who that eventual candidate, a new governor is, we need to have the strength of our communities, our families, our small businesses, our first responders, all looking ahead saying, we all want the same thing, to make this state great.
Speaking about making the state great, it's interesting. You talked about consultants before, where it just seems like this never-ending assembly line of consultants just want to get paid. You know what? I think Woodrow Wilson can rest easy in his grave, though, Bill, that he'll be the only New Jerseyan ever elected to the White House. It seems like consultants are just charging these hourlies, whatever, and somehow trying to convince the emperor that he's presidential material, and he's just not. And this is the reality, though. When that report comes out, and again, I don't have a lot of faith in that report as of yet, but whenever anybody wants to dissect Phil Murphy's response to COVID, that's going to kill him on the national level. I don't know why. Again, God bless these consultants for going out and charging money. Hey, listen, make a living. God bless you. But they're stealing money. If anyone's sitting in a room telling Phil Murphy that he's presidential material, he just isn't. I'm not trying to be mean, but the facts.
They're saying the same thing about Chris Christie, and I'm sure that our former nominee had designs on running up had he been fortunate enough to win in 21. The reality is we have to elect people and nominate people who are not looking for the next job. This is not about padding a resume. This
Yeah.
is about fixing the state. You know, I had a great conversation with my friend Tom Kean Jr., now Congressman-elect Tom Kean Jr. He said, you know, in the past, I think he went back 50 or 60 years. He said there have only been two governors who truly cared about New Jersey, wanted to fix New Jersey, make New Jersey great, live up to our motto of liberty and prosperity, and had no designs going further. He said, my dad, talking about Tom Kean Sr., arguably the most popular governor in New Jersey in the past 50 years,
Oh, yeah.
and Jim Florio. And I wrote an article about Jim Florio. I know everybody knows him as the guy that lost the election by 20,000 votes because of the tax hike. But the reality is Jim Florio cared about New Jersey. Jim Florio did something that a lot of Republicans have failed to do, that when he increased taxes, like Chris Christie did, he also cut spending and pared down government. So there was balance in what Jim Florio did. And I know a lot of my conservative friends are going to be all angry that they hear this. I'll get hate tweets tonight, but I don't care. Look, I'm here to speak the truth. And New Jersey deserves that. We deserve a governor who is not thinking about the run up to the White House, that wants to actually get things done, use the power, not to pad their resume, but to actually live up to the motto of the state and bring back the greatness that we honestly, that we started losing back 30 years ago. It's time to reverse course and bring this back. And we can. And we have to do it by empowering teachers and cops and firefighters and parents, not by disparaging them, not by tearing them down. That's the message that has to get out there, that this is about a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And it's time Trenton gets that message.
No, absolutely. But Bill, before I let you go, real quick, a couple of things. Let's settle the debate. Is it North and South Jersey, or is it North Jersey, Central Jersey, and South Jersey?
All right, I'm going to solve this for you right now, Fernando. There are 4 New Jerseys. There's North, South, Central, and the Shore.
That's right. Okay.
That's where
right.
I am on this.
You know what? You know what? You said it. Okay. You know what? I cannot argue that. You nailed it perfectly. Bill, as we go towards the legislative elections next year, again, getting back to really this emphasis that we need to put and sort of really put the NJGOP under the microscope. It just seems that there are a lot of winnable races down in your area by the shore, up in Bergen County, assembly seats, state Senate seats. You know, aside from just, hey, taxes and respecting law and order, reducing spending, what else can the NJGOP do when it runs candidates? And again, the messaging, what is going to ultimately win over Republicans to make sure they don't stay home and to make sure the independents come out and even disenfranchise and disaffect the Democrats as well?
I think there are 3 things that the NJGOP needs to do, and any Republican candidate should take this as a battle plan going forward. Number 1, we need to eliminate virtue signaling legislation. So reverse the bag ban. It's absurd. It's not saving the environment. It's only making life less convenient in the Garden State while the rest of the world moves on in normalcy. That is number 1. Number 2, we have to restore the choice and the power of parents to make the medical decisions and the religious decisions for their children and their families, period, end of sentence. That comes in all forms. Number 3, we have to take a look at the overall spending and how we start to carve out and monetize things that will make us more prosperous. So, for example, I have brought this up and I've talked to 12.5 legislators. Nobody knows the answer when I say, what is the value of the assets owned by New Jersey Transit? I don't know. No one can give me a straight answer on this, but you're talking about the potential of billions of dollars. People want practical government. We want a government that works for us. We need to fix the Department of Education, if not eliminate it altogether. We need to fix the Department of Transportation so people that pay into this unemployment fund are actually getting something out when they need it. They deserve it. We need to fix motor vehicles and make sure that truck drivers can get their CDLs renewed and that first-time driver doesn't have to wait 6 months to get their license. So those are practical things. You know what we need to do? We need to talk about reducing the cost of roads, not by lowering the wages of the workers, but by eliminating the corruption. How many lawyers and engineers are piled into that $1 to $2 million per mile cost? I'd love to know, and I'd love to eliminate half of them. How is it possible that roadway workers, trade union workers, skilled workers in places like New York and Massachusetts can earn more than a worker in New Jersey, yet it costs us 2 to 3 times as much to fix the same road. That is the practical politics that I believe New Jersey challenger Republican candidates need to talk about. And we have to get out of the vitriol, the personal attacks, get out of the race baiting nonsense, stop with all the attacks on individuals and people, and start talking about policy. This is about empowering, building people up. We need to get the cops, the teachers, the firefighters, the parents, and the store owners, the janitors, and everyone in between saying, you know what? The Republican candidate is a viable alternative to the woke virtue signaling Democrat that has done nothing but preside over a budget that has gone from 35 billion to 51 billion, which makes our average tax the highest in the country. You want to address taxes, address the corruption, address the greedy elites, address the greedy big hospitals, big pharma, address Horizon and the cost of the state health plan. Don't alienate the people the way Chris Christie did. Chris Christie attacked teachers instead of the teachers union. He attacked state workers instead of the state workers unions. He should have attacked the elites that were hurting everyone. Those teachers are held hostage by the NJEA. They're victims as much as anybody else. So the long and short of it is we need to speak for and stand up for and have the courage to fight for the average person, the average family, the average small business, the average first responder in this state. That is the recipe to winning in 23 and beyond.
Bill, you're right about that. Real quick here, it seemed like Democrats, as you mentioned, the woke far-left virtue signaling Democrats in Trenton were all ready to put a referendum on the ballot next November because they knew they wanted to drive up turnout about abortion. And I don't have a law degree, but I don't need one to know that it's already been codified into law here in New Jersey.
Right.
Why this insistence by all these woke virtue signalers, these insufferable feminists that thought that it was a good idea to try to put this on a referendum? It seemed like maybe somebody got into the ears of Senate President Scutari and Assembly Speaker Coughlin. What do you hear?
Well, they failed because it's a step too far. So when you talk about the abortion issue, the challenge is that everyone's afraid of it on the right. They're afraid to talk about it. Here's the reality. As a pro-life Catholic, as somebody who values the sanctity of life and believe the unborn need to be protected, I also understand the political realities. And I'll reference my friend Congressman Chris Smith. I don't know any person in any legislature anywhere that is more pro-life and has done more to protect the lives of the unborn than Congressman Chris Smith. Even Chris understood that when you're dealing with the other side in politics, you got to compromise. So his compromise was a bill that ends abortion at 15 weeks. Once you've got the viability of the fetus, the heartbeat, et cetera, once you can determine that, and he said at 15 weeks, that was their compromise. The radical left doesn't want to hear 15 weeks because they want unlimited access. And the challenge to unlimited abortions is you are hurting innocent people. Left out of the conversation are the kids who are trafficked and used as sex slaves. Left out of the conversation is the ugly side of post-abortion that many women go through. Left out of the conversation are the fact that now in New Jersey, you can have someone that's not a medical doctor performing this procedure. All these things were thrown out because of the drive of the political left to have abortion up to the point of birth. The governor even went further, now requiring insurance companies to cover abortion up to the point of birth. It's not only outrageous, but even for moderates in the Democratic and the Republican Party who would call themselves pro-choice, they don't believe in abortion up to birth. You look at America, most Americans are opposed to late-term abortion. So I would say, let's stop being afraid of that conversation. Let's dig in and say, first of all, we need to take away the state funding. That is absolutely outrageous. Nobody in New Jersey who is seeking an abortion is not able to get an abortion. So let's take that argument away completely. And number two, can we get back to common sense and find some common ground here? I think 15 weeks is a reasonable compromise for both sides. So those conversations are lost in today's politics, Fernando. That's what we have to get back. We got to get back there.
No, I'm with you, Bill. Bill, again, this has been a great conversation. I could have you on for 2 hours and not get through everything. So I appreciate you being a gentleman here to come on the show. I appreciate your faith in Jersey First TV and your faith in this program. So I really, again, I'm grateful that you want to take the time to come on here, have a great conversation, break down the issues. Before I let you go, again, thank you so much for your time. Certainly, I wish you the best of luck because I do listen to you as much as I can during the day. Great show. Keep up the great work. I'll give you the last word here tonight.
So I have a new show as well. In addition to being on in the morning on New Jersey 101.5, 6 to 10 a.m., we stream on my free app. It's NJ1015 in the App Store, but I launched a new show called Common Ground. It airs live with call-in Thursday, 4:30 from our great studios in beautiful downtown Red Bank in Monmouth County, New Jersey. Thanks to my friend Rob Gill and Epic Financial Services. We've got a new studio. You go to my website, which is billspadea.com, for all the information, and I'll see you tomorrow morning and Thursday.
Bill, again, keep up the great work. Thank you again for coming on the show. And I appreciate you being a fan of Real Talk.
I love it. Talk to you soon.
Take care, man. Have a good one.
Take care. You too.
Folks, he is Bill Spadea. Again, amazing media host here. Again, obviously with NJ 101.5 FM. Great conversation there. Ran a little long, but again, I think it was really important to break down the important topics of what's going on here, certainly in the Garden State. And I think no one does it better than Bill Spadea. So again, I want to thank him for his time tonight, and certainly look forward to having him on in 2023. Keep the comments coming. We appreciate everyone writing in here on the comments section. Obviously, my fellow Jersey First teammate there, the host of the Nader Narrative, Elizabeth Nader, on here as well, in addition to other great comments. Keep them coming. Sharing is caring, folks, again, as we continue here on Jersey First TV. If you're just joining us live right now, certainly, take a moment there, whether it's on your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, certainly on the Jersey First YouTube page. Sharing is caring. Click that share button, and certainly you'll be able to hear tonight's episode on wherever you get your podcast, whether it's on Spotify or SoundCloud. It's all available there for you. Listen to them, download them, share them with your friends and family, and tell them why, again, Jersey First TV continues to grow in popularity each and every week. Folks, before I let you go, obviously, it is that time of the show here. Certainly, I like to nominate people who are doing a disservice to journalism. And of course, this week we have certainly two very interesting winners of the worst journalist here in the Garden State. And again, I'll certainly do my best to, I always keep the show PG here, but as best as I can, try to make it as humorous, also as factually correct as I always do every single week. But folks, when we talk about awful journalism here in the Garden State, I mean, we are infested with it, right? Whether it is a plethora of different news sites here, but that's the problem, that we as New Jerseyans are being done an immense disservice. It's interesting. We just went through Cyber Monday right after Thanksgiving, and I noticed my inbox was flooded with emails from NJ.com, from NorthJersey.com, from the Bergen Record, from the Star Ledger, from NJ.com, wherever, talking about supporting journalism that you can trust. And I really had to laugh when I saw that in my inbox, because when it comes to journalism you can trust, folks, it's this show. It's certainly the Nader Narrative with my tag team partner, Elizabeth Nader, with Jersey First TV, and obviously all the other great talent that's associated with Jersey First TV. So when I see these offers on Cyber Monday, I'm like, I wouldn't give a nickel to any of these news sites that are begging for money. Why are they begging for money? Because they know that on their merits, they're not producing good journalism. So why not try to scam you on Cyber Monday? Well, I'm not falling for that, and I'm glad that others aren't. Now, let me be very clear and fair here, because I certainly don't want to hear about people being laid off during the holiday season. We are seeing that with different news sites. Again, I don't want to see that. It bothers me, and it certainly doesn't sit well with me about people losing their jobs. But the problem is, folks, that journalism in New Jersey has really gone downhill. And part of what I do for a living, obviously, is grading. And if I have to give a grade to sort of the majority of journalism here in the Garden State, yes, I have to give it an F, because that's what we're inundated with. And I think ultimately, I talk about it every single week when I pick the week's winners, obviously, about the worst journalists. But I would argue that this is a news site where it doesn't have to depend on the generosity of others, per se. Okay, yeah, they get tons of great advertising for their power list and everything else. But folks, when we talk about bad journalism, the problem is that it's not just being a bad journalist, but now it's about being a propagandist. It's about being a clown and misrepresenting your positions. And you know who leads the charge here in New Jersey? That's right, folks. It's Insider NJ. Have you ever seen a bigger pool, okay, of propagandists congregated in one specific tub? And that's what we're seeing here. And that's what we've been seeing for quite some time. And that's not me being salty. It's not. That's not me being vindictive. It's not. It's me being truthful, because that's what Insider NJ is. Insider NJ has gone from being just bad journalism, which I've talked about for weeks here, but now they're full-blown propagandists. Okay? Take your pick. Whether it's the editor-in-chief, Maxi Pizarro, okay, when you read his columns, if you can stay awake during them. But what's even worse is the constant woke virtue signaling, okay, or this fixation on identity politics, or whatever is, I don't know, whatever narrative you want to come up with, right? Whatever victimhood you want to peddle. But that's what we're seeing at Insider NJ. We're seeing people acting like clowns in their columns. We're seeing people like Jay Lassiter, okay, talking about, I don't know, being the resident virtue signaler, as I mention him often on this program, when he's doing a disservice to us, okay, as well as everybody else at Insider NJ. Let me just be very clear. Let me exclude Fred Snowflake. Freddie's a buddy of mine, and I love Fred, good writer. I don't agree with anything politically that he writes in the sense of his ideology, but he's a good writer. I think he tries his best to not let his politics or wear his politics on his sleeve. But the rest of the crew at Insider NJ can't help themselves, okay? We'll talk about the first virtue signaler, yes, Jay Lassiter. Interesting, obviously going to the League of Municipalities like I did. Obviously, he did as well. Fortunately, I didn't have to be too near Jay. Obviously, you don't want to be able to look at Jay too long. I mean, obviously, I don't want to lose my lunch or, have an upset stomach, obviously, as I'm consuming alcohol. But here was a really interesting thing about the league, right? Talking about league chatter and everything. In a recent column here by Jay, talking about the, with the League of Municipalities and the Review Mirror, let's take stock of what folks wanted to chat about down in Atlantic City. Last year, the hot topic was weed, of course, because that's all Jay lives for. The year before was COVID. It was also Me Too stuff. But here's what seemed to be on the mind of people at Atlantic City, right? And only Jay and maybe, again, a lot of the woke virtue signalers in Atlantic City were talking about this, right? About the abortion referendum or the potential for an abortion referendum, right? So, of course, never going to, think that Jay won't be, grabbing shots or taking drinks with his Planned Parenthood buddies, right? Told me that there might be a ballot, referendum on the ballot next November. And of course, little JJ, of course, had to get all fired up and about, oh yes, let's put it on a state referendum, as if, again, maybe I know Jay's like in his late 60s and maybe, cognitively he doesn't remember, but Jay, you do realize that in the last couple of years under the governance of Phil Murphy, abortion or reproductive, rights have been codified into state law. Like, what more do you want? It just seems like overkill. And I get it. The next November is only a legislative election, right? So certainly there's no federal races. There's no gubernatorial race. It's just legislative races. Okay. There's 80 assembly seats and all 40 state Senate seats. As Bill Spadea mentioned tonight, obviously it's a 4-year term for state Senate seats, and that's a very important race. And obviously the state assembly are 2-year races. All right. And certainly, little JJ writing here, you have to laugh at this. I'm with you, quote, I'll bundle tons of cash for the campaign and give you my blood, sweat, and tears on the battlefield to defend abortion rights. Again, folks, you have to love the virtue signaling by Jay. Number one, Jay's not going to impregnate anybody. Obviously, we all know that. But number two, what's interesting about Jay Lassiter is he perpetuates this nonsensical narrative by all these woke virtue signaling organizations like Women for Progress, or, I don't know, activistas or whatever else. It's like, folks, this is what makes feminists insufferable and all these cat ladies in New Jersey so unlikable, okay? Stop weaponizing abortion for fundraising, for your virtue signaling, and all your woke nonsense. It's codified into state law. Now, I get it that a lot of women in New Jersey and, guys like Jay want to bitch and moan about, bitching and moaning about the fact that that abortions can't be performed in states that they don't live in. Okay, Jay, and to everybody else, all the insufferable feminists and cat ladies, here's a newsflash. Okay, there's something called the 10th Amendment. Okay, maybe you've heard of it. When you took U.S. history and you studied the Constitution, that's all the Dobbs decision decided this past June. Okay, that's all the justices talked about, is that they're pretty much relegating it back to the states. Again, federalism, the 10th Amendment. Maybe you've heard of it, Jay. Again, if you put down the bong and stop smoking weed like you do every hour of every day, you would realize that that's part of, again, the Bill of Rights. Federalism, states' rights. Now, I understand that maybe you disagree with what Tennessee may want to do, with what Texas may want to do, with what Louisiana wants to do. Understand something. You think people in Florida and Texas are sitting around a table thinking to themselves, wow, man, they sure coddle illegals in New Jersey. Man, they sure do spend it recklessly and irresponsibly in New Jersey. Maybe we should go virtue signal on that. They don't care any more than we should care. I get it, Jay. If you feel so strongly, do us all a favor and move to Tennessee. Believe me, I'll help you pack. I'll drive you to the airport if I had to. Believe me, getting you out of New Jersey would be a dream for me and so many other people that are sick of your nonsense. Okay? But this is the thing. Whether it's activists and woke virtue signalers like Jay Lassiter, that's all he lives for, folks. I mean, other than that, I mean, is the guy really worth anything else when it comes to what he does on a daily basis, especially in journalism? Like these dishonest pieces here, right? Talking about, for example, also cigarettes in casinos. The debate over indoor smoking in casinos was right under everyone's nose in Atlantic City. Depending on which entrance you use, the smell of cigarette smoke hit like a ton of bricks the instant you step inside. I found the Borgata to be especially smoky, and it's funny, Jake complained about smoke. And when I did my leak laundry 48 hours later, my clothes still reeked. Jay, see, here's a reality. You don't have to go to the league. You don't have to go to a casino. You see what I'm saying? Like, I understand you may not like the provisions and rules, but here's a newsflash. No one's forcing you to go to the Borgata or the Golden Nugget or the Hard Rock or Trumpet. No one's forcing you, Jay. So again, if it really bothers you that much, stop your bitching and moaning, go somewhere else. Do something else. But again, you want to have your cake and smoke it too, right? And that's the thing, and it can't be that way, Jay. If it really bothers you that much, then don't go. Don't go to the league. Don't go to casinos. Go do something else in late November, right? Again, stay home and smoke weed. I mean, that's what you live for. Okay? Now, I don't like cigarette smoke. I endure it, but when am I really in Atlantic City? Maybe once a year during the League of Municipalities. Maybe some other part of the year. Maybe if I'm dating a girl and maybe I want to take away for a weekend. Maybe that's it. But I'm not living in Atlantic City. And I get it. You want to virtue signal and you want to talk about, you're speaking up for all the casino employees. Jay, again, you're not fooling anybody. Okay? When you publish columns like this. Okay? If you don't like cigarette smoke, then don't go to casinos. There's plenty of other things to do in South Jersey where you live in Cherry Hill. Again, I don't know what it could be. I don't know, going to a Walmart or something. I have no idea. But the reality is, Jay, that again, you're being disingenuous here. Stop the virtue signaling. Okay? You do it constantly. You've been doing it for years in your columns, and you continue to do this. Okay? No one's buying it, especially in the abortion thing. Of course, some Democrats in Trenton wanted to pump up turnout next year because it's a legislative election. But we all know that it's unnecessary. It's overkill. And as I said before, you don't need a law degree to know that reproductive justice or reproductive rights, okay, have already been codified into New Jersey law. It seems like all these insufferable organizations like Planned Parenthood, Women for Progress, Activistas, all these other clowns, okay, that live to bitch and moan. Like they live to bitch and they bitch to live. Folks, let's get past that, okay? There are much more important issues in New Jersey than abortion. I hate to break it to you ladies out there that are virtue signaling every single day on social media or at rallies or whatever. Take your pick, all right? I don't have enough fingers and toes to name all these insufferable feminists and cat ladies, okay? There are more important issues, as Bill Spadea talked about tonight, okay? Spending, making sure that school boards run the school boards correctly, that curriculum isn't being twisted and manipulated, that we're reducing, again, that we're being responsible with our money, with our budgets. That's what matters, Jay. But again, that's asking a lot of Jay Lassiter, okay? A guy in his late 60s, early 70s, to maybe even put together this sort of cognitive thought together. Again, he'd rather virtue signal than create solutions or offer solutions. Jay, it's really easy to sit at home with your bong and bitch and moan when you're not offering solutions. I get all that. It's easy. But again, I'm over here talking policies. You're over there taking your next hit. We're not the same. And of course, when we talk about bad journalism again and propagandists, which they're full of at Insider NJ, yes, of course, when we're talking about Jay's next column, you can, of course, check out the sneak peek there when he's at home, again, putting down his bong or whatever he's doing. And certainly, think about whatever other victimhood he can peddle on his next column. So again, some exclusive footage courtesy here of your favorite broadcast journalist there, Jay Lasser, thinking about what else he's going to virtue signal as 2022 comes to an end. And of course, 2023 is right around the corner. And certainly, ladies and gentlemen, we talk about propagandists, probably the lead propagandist, okay, at Insider NJ, of course, the other resident clowns there. You know what it is. It's Sleepy Al, Alan Steinberg. Again, never fails to bitch and moan about something. Again, I've never seen a guy in his late 90s who, again, has the former president of the United States living in his head rent-free. He wrote a very interesting column last week, obviously after the 45th president dined with Kanye West and Nick Fuentes. Again, folks, I had no idea who Nick Fuentes was. I don't, read up on any of the stuff that he peddles. It's not for me. I don't care for it. Okay. I like Kanye's music from back in the day. I think he was a better singer back in the mid 2000s, not so much lately. But I'm not there fixating on every moment of every day of, well, is this person anti-Semitic or is that person anti-Semitic? Al, I get it. Like, you live for that stuff. You're like Uncle Leo from that Seinfeld episode. You think everyone's anti-Semitic. No, Al. If someone dislikes you, it's not because they're an anti-Semite. It's because you're unlikable. You could be a Buddhist. You could be a Christian. You could be a Muslim. You could be whatever. You could be Episcopalian for all I care. What makes you unlikable is just, it's you. It's your personality. It's your just the ability of you to be a propagandist each and every hour of every day. It's not because of what religion you practice. Stop it. Stop with this fixation. You think everything's anti-Semitic or everything's a shot at anti-Semitism. It's not, Al. You need to grow up. Again, you're in your late 90s here. You need to act a little better, okay? Be a better example to your grandkids, since you're always tweeting about them. Be a better example. Stop virtue signaling and stop being, this perpetual victim that you seem to peddle. But again, let me get to your recent column here. This is a doozy here. Talking about Bob Hugin, obviously, when he entered the 2018 political scene. Again, I have my issues and reservations about Bob Hugin. Again, I like him personally. We get along. He's been a gentleman to me. I'm certainly a gentleman to him. I have my reservations about Bob Hugin, as my guest did tonight as well. All right. But it seems like, Alan Steinberg here is just all over the place in this, in his latest diatribe here, talking about the fact that, to some extent, a state party chair is the unofficial spokesman for his or her state party. To some extent, I think maybe it's more the collective organization, maybe than just one person, right? Because again, when we talk about who's the lead Republican, well, you're going to get 10 different answers from 10 different people. But don't say that to Sleepy Al, because Sleepy Al won't want to hear anything about it. And yes, as Bill Spadea mentioned before, yeah, Bob Hugin dropped the ball there. He shouldn't have said what he said about Mikey Sherrill. I have an issue with Mikey Sherrill. I don't like her policy-wise. I commend her on her service, serving in the in the Air Force, and certainly working in law enforcement as a prosecutor. I'll commend her on that. I just don't like her policies. I don't like the fact that she voted with Nancy Pelosi almost nearly the duration of her record. Okay, we'll see what happens now with Hakeem Jeffries, noted a race baiter and virtue signaler, since he'll be apparently the next leader in the Democratic Party in the House. Okay, but it's interesting where, Al has to, confess a high sensitivity to the words "America First." Right? Talks about, thanks to the sacrifices of my parents, I was able to attend Northwestern University, where I studied history and political science, where you clearly didn't learn much, Al, because you didn't retain it, under the tutelage of some of the world's finest professors. Is Northwestern University Rutgers? Clearly not. I think when we talk about better education and better faculty and just a better quality of what you're learning. But again, that's an argument for a different day. But this was really interesting. And one of my major areas of research was the America First movement, the isolationist movement in the late 30s and early 1940s, whose leadership included Charles Lindbergh, was largely composed of anti-Semites who accused American Jewry of attempting to draw America into war with Nazi Germany. Now, of course, this is a surprise. He goes, I have no reason to accuse Bob Hugin of anti-Semitism, but his use of the phrase America First has both historically nauseous and xenophobic connotations in whatever context it's used. I get it, Al. You want to, again, you never miss an opportunity to call something xenophobic, to call something racist or this, that, because you live on that. Again, this is a guy who claims that for the longest time he's been a Republican or he was a conservative. Someone doesn't just switch gears like that for no reason. You can't blame the 45th president, Alan, okay? These things were always inside of you, okay? They just happened to come out recently. Again, you don't like populist politics. Fine, you're entitled to believe whatever you want, but be consistent and be intellectually honest, which again, your columns failed to do, okay? talking about as well, the idea about whether or not Bob Hugin. This was really interesting here at the end. The New Jersey Republican Party has a dire need to gain more support from minority and Gen Z voters. The rhetoric of Bob Hugin gives them a severe case of political halitosis in communicating with these constituencies. There's only one way to resolve the issue. If Bob Hugin and the NJGOP do not issue a statement of repudiation of Trump and the deplorable Mar-a-Lago dinner within the next 48 hours, the state chair will confirm that he is not only ethnically insensitive, but historically ignorant. He will also reveal himself to be an absolute political dunce. Kind of takes one to know one, right, Alan? So it's interesting, though, because, when you talk about reaching out to minority constituencies, right? I think this is where Republicans can really make a dent here because, folks, as the 45th president lives rent-free in Sleepy Al's head, here's a few things that, again, and I have my policy disagreements with the 45th president, more so, I think, maybe of his rhetoric and some things he said. But when it comes to policies, again, this is where Al, again, I know he took political science a long, long time ago, but whatever he learned, he probably didn't retain it. Okay, because anyone that has a mouse or any sort of access to the internet can easily Google this when it comes to the populist policies that worked from 2017 to 2021 for minorities, for example, right? What Sleepy Al won't write about and what he won't tell you, right? Because he wants to be convenient with his facts. President Trump, during that time, implemented a $360 million grant to support HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, for 10 years, the most attempted or accomplished by any president, regardless of party or color. That's a fact. If you look up what he did in 2018, when he signed it into law, right, through a Republican House and a Republican Senate, okay, that was signed into law. I won't tell you that. He'd rather virtue signal how much Donald Trump and Republicans hate Black people. That's clearly not the case when a Republican Congress and a Republican president signed this law that over the next 10 years, again, we're going to inject $360 million to support HBCUs. But again, Alan won't tell you that because, again, when it comes to facts, we all know how allergic Alan is to that. Also shrinking the Black-white unemployment rate, which is one of the lowest it's ever been between 2017 to 2021. Again, these are talking points that Republicans can win on by talking about them. Also, initiating opportunity zones, right? Sparking large economic growth in urban communities all over the country. Again, that were predicted to generate at least $100 billion of new investments, and there are at least 9,000 of them, at least at the last count. Also, another accomplishment by not just a Republican Congress in both the House and Senate, and also a Republican president, took 4 million people off the welfare roll, primarily Black and Hispanics, by providing more than 4 million jobs. Do you think Alan would tell you about that? No, he'd rather go virtue signal about Build Back Better. I don't see anything being built back better. I don't see anything being built. I don't see anything being back or anything being better. But again, Alan would rather virtue signal with his insufferable columns, right? Also initiating and implementing the First Step Act. Actually, it's ironic you mentioned Kanye West. The 45th president worked with his ex-wife, Kim Kardashian West, right? And helping to implement the First Step Act, right? That allows nonviolent offenders a second chance at life while simultaneously addressing recidivism in Black communities. Again, these are things that the liberal media at the national level, and certainly not here in New Jersey, clearly not Sleepy Al, clearly not Uncle Dave with NJ Spotlight News, clearly not Tommy Boy, Tom Moran with the Star Ledger, not Chucky, okay? Charles Style with NorthJersey.com and the Bergen Breaker collectively. No, all these liberal journalists would rather just vilify. But again, folks, this is easy to look up. Again, take your mouse, right? Go on your mouse pad, go to, the search bar, type in google.com, and you can find all these things. But again, that's a little too difficult for Sleepy Al. And again, I know it's 7 o'clock. It's probably past his bedtime. I doubt he's awake at this hour watching the show. He'll probably watch the replay tomorrow. But again, Al, it's interesting what you want to pick and choose your battles, but it's interesting what hill you want to die on. Okay? As far as I'm concerned, to me, whatever happened at Mar-a-Lago, I don't care. Okay? It's not because I hate Jews. It's not because I'm I'm none of those things. I just don't care. It's not important to me. You know what's important to me right now? Inflation. The fact that Christmas dinner, and of course, your Hanukkah dinner, right, is going to be more expensive this year than it was last year. Okay? The fact that food prices continue to skyrocket. The fact that this president, instead of drilling domestically, would rather rely on foreign oil, okay, would rather virtue signal and make sure we get cross-dressers and transgender people and all these other, misfits into the White House administration, right? Whether it's in transportation, whether it's in energy, whether it's, naval officers, obviously acting as doctors. Again, this is what Alan thinks is more important, okay? During this election cycle and during this holiday season. All right? Now, but, again, that requires, just like little JJ requires Sleepy Al to have, wait for it, it's 4 syllables, right? Integrity. Okay? Again, I know it's a tough word for you, Alan. Integrity. I know it's 4 syllables, and I know your vocabulary is pretty good, right? But again, that's a 4-syllable word that clearly you're lacking, and it shows in your columns. Okay? As I mentioned before, if it wasn't for you and all these other people bitching and moaning, I wouldn't know about Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes isn't important to me. He's never been on my radar. He'll continue to not be on my radar. I don't care about what he believes in. He's a small, fragment of the Republican Party or the conservative movement. By the way, since you're getting this perpetual hard-on about anti-Semites, how about anti-Semites with the Democratic Party? How come I never see you go after Ilhan Omar, who clearly, if you Google her and you look up quotes, she's an anti-Semite? How about Rashida Tlaib? How about Representative Ayanna Pressley? Even Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? How come you never go after Democrats or those on the left in your party, because you're a Democrat now, when it comes to anti-Semitism? But you want to bitch and moan about Nick Fuentes and about Kanye West? 2 guys are about as irrelevant as anything else. They're already off the news cycle because nobody cares about them. They're irrelevant. They're a small percentage of what conservatives or populists think about or believe in. But do you think that Al would have the intellectual honesty and the philosophical consistency to write about, anti-Semitism within the Democrat? Of course not. Again, Al, it pains me. It pains me to know that a guy who's 100 years old struggles with the word integrity, among other words. Al, you got to do better, bro. Again, as the twilight of your life is approaching, we all know, you got to do better. Okay? Writing columns like this doesn't help anything. Because what I just did is I just exposed the fraud that you are. And it took me 10 minutes to do that. Imagine if I spent hours upon hours just Googling your columns and dissecting, again, you cherry-picking facts. I'd roast you like a Thanksgiving turkey. And I'm happy to roast turkeys. I roast turkeys all the time. So again, folks, when we talk about, propagandists, we talk about the service of journalism, yep, you can always rely on Sleepy Al, Alan Steinberg, of course, and little JJ Lassiter, of course. And, you can see there exclusive footage of Alan Steinberg, I'm sure tomorrow, thinking of what column to write next and what virtue signaling or victimhood to peddle on his next column. Again, being the broadcast journalist that I am, I get you exclusive footage that nobody else gets you. So we'll see what he'll want to do next week. And of course, folks, when we talk about propaganda, we talk about propagandists. Nobody does it better than Insider NJ and certainly Alan Steinberg and Jay Lassiter, this week's winners of the worst journalists in the state of New Jersey. And of course, folks, one of the things I want to remind you about is somebody has to do it. Okay? But what you need today, folks, in today's media here in the Garden State is you need a hero. And I'm proud to be your hero because everyone needs one. Okay? I'm proud to be the people's choice and the people's voice. And I take that responsibility seriously because when we think about the immense disservice that multiple news sites do in New Jersey, NJ Spotlight News, Uncle Dave, right? The New Jersey Monitor once in a while with Terrence McDonald, a little too much virtue signaling for my taste. Good reporting overall, but from time to time, get a little sanctimonious and annoying and obnoxious and nauseating. Whether it's NorthJersey.com with Chucky, Charles Style. Whether it's the Star Ledger with Tom Moran. Or even Insider NJ once again with Bob Hennelly. With its editor-in-chief, Maxie Pizarro. Twinkle Toes never, ever, will ever not take the opportunity to virtue signal if he can. As well as Bob Hennelly. As well as Alan Steinberg. As well as Jay Lassiter. But folks, now more than ever, when we think about needing heroes in media, I'm proud to be your hero. And I'll continue to work hard for you every single week, not just here on Jersey First TV, but also helping to represent Jersey First TV wherever I go, because that's what me and my teammates at Jersey First TV stand for. Okay, talking about issues that matter, the community, taxes, the economy, parents, okay, responsible school boards. That's what we care about at Jersey First TV. We care about representing you, the people. So I'm proud to be your hero. And I'll always continue to be proud of it because you know what? Someone needs to sort of take up the fight. And if it's just me against the liberal media in New Jersey and all the clowns I just mentioned, then you know what? I'm happy to be that guy. I'm happy to take on that army in the cesspool that is the liberal media in New Jersey. I'm proud to do it. And I continue doing it. You know why? A, because you can't cancel me. And B, you can't silence me. And C, and really, what really pisses off a lot of the people on the left in New Jersey media is that you can't shut me up. And that's what bothers you the most. You can't cancel me. You can't shut me up. You can't silence me. You'll have to learn to live with me like everybody else does. But again, folks, when it comes to being a hero, now more than ever, I'm proud to be yours. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, always check out Jersey First TV and all of our social media platforms. Again, make sure you like it on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at the Fernando Zone. Check out Jersey First TV on YouTube. And of course, wherever you listen to podcasts, download Jersey First TV on SoundCloud and Spotify. Take them with you, whether it's you're going to take a final exam, walking your dog, going to the gym to work off those Thanksgiving pounds, or just, I don't know, maybe you're going away for New Year's, maybe somewhere tropical. You want to sort of work off that weight. Wherever you listen to your podcast, download, and Jersey First TV will go with you. Of course, we always appreciate your support here on the program. And that's our show for this week here. Once again, I want to thank NJ 101.5 FM host and media superstar Bill Spadea for an amazing interview tonight. Great segment with him. Look forward to having him back on in 2023. And certainly, folks, again, sharing is caring. Make sure you take a moment to share tonight's broadcast on all of your social media platforms I just mentioned. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always real talk right here with Jersey First TV. I am New Jersey's premier and now 7-time award-winning journalist, top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit online magazine for 2020, 2021, and 2022. Big news coming up, folks, by the Latino Spirit as it pertains to the awards coming up for top Latinos. Looking forward to that. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, your favorite Hispanic conservative, yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe, saying so long, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go Cowboys. And as always, thank you so much for watching.